Covering news that matters. Fox 23 News at 6:30 starts right now.
Thanks for joining me at 6:30. I'm Rick Marinon. Our top story tonight is what we are also going in depth on. The 2025 legislative session is over, but it wasn't after what was one of the longest, ugliest, and wild nights we've seen from state lawmakers in a very long time. A night that led to the Commissioner of Mental Health being fired and one senator taking to the floor to defend the honor of his wife. In one of their last votes of the legislative session, lawmakers in both chambers fired Mental Health and Substance Abuse Commissioner Allie Friesen.
She is just unfortunately unfit to lead that organization any longer, and you saw that loud and clear from the House and the Senate. And it's unfortunate. I wish no ill will to her personally. I wish her all the best, but she does not need to be the Commissioner of Mental Health any longer.
Lawmakers cited weeks of at times heated public hearings in which they still have no answers as to where $30 million of taxpayer funds went, and uncertainty to nonprofits statewide that help care for the most vulnerable among us, as just some of the reasons they believe a new leader for the agency, still in financial trouble, is needed.
I don't think that any of you are having fun, and I'm not having a great time, but we can't just make things look good.
Things took a complicated and ugly turn Thursday night when Governor Kevin Stitt released a statement attacking the wives of Senate Health and Human Services Chairman Paul Rusino and House Majority Floor Leader Josh West. Accusations of a cover-up were then repeated on the floor by Shawnee Republican Senator Shane Jett.
Reports in the media is indicating that there is a spouse that works in this department. Is that true?
Thank you, Mr. President. She is a part-time employee. That is true.
Senators, visibly outraged by Stitt and Jett's comments about their colleagues' wives, said they were already going to vote to fire Friesen, but the personal attacks falsely accusing their colleagues' wives of helping contribute to the mess at the agency lit a fire underneath them and helped erase any doubt about whether Friesen should go.
This is the Oklahoma State Senate. This isn't third grade playground.
As a wife, thinking about someone, downing my spouse, it's unacceptable.
Because what happened today is not acceptable. I urge you to pass this measure and to vote your conscience and to stop letting the second floor bully everyone in this building.
That someone would politicize that by attacking the family of my colleague makes me wish I could vote twice, and I encourage a yes vote.
By 1 a.m., Friesen was out. Here is the full statement from Governor Kevin Stitt that upset so many. We are going to read it to you in full now. From the start, this was nothing more than a politically motivated witch hunt. I tasked Allie Friesen with bringing accountability and transparency to the agency. She disturbed the status quo and questioned the long-held practices at the agency. An agency rife with sweetheart deals and criminal elements was disrupted, and now elected officials are working to set the apple cart right for those who seek to get rich off of Oklahoma taxpayers. Josh West and Paul Rusino need to first answer what they stand to gain from Allie Friesen being removed. What are they trying to keep covered up? What conflicts of interest are they trying to hide? Is Senator Rusino trying to help his wife avoid responsibility for her role in the finance department there? Oklahomans deserve answers. After the Senate voted to fire Friesen, Senator Rusino then took to the floor one more time to defend his wife. Here's some of what he said.
I want to thank you all for standing up to a vicious and callous attack on one of the kindest, nicest, most Christian woman I have ever known. She is a low-level, part-time employee that has nothing to do with any of this. And I hope that all of you who have a spouse will never have to endure a crying spouse or a woman who did not deserve this.
On the House side, before they voted to fire Friesen, the outrage over Stitt's statement continued on the floor there. The Josh West mentioned in the statement is who you will see in some of this video.
Are you aware of a release that was sent out earlier tonight by our illustrious executive?
I have seen the release, yes, sir.
You're recognized for a follow-up.
Do you agree with me that it is absolutely detestable that someone would attack a member of the legislature's spouse for doing their job?
Yeah, I mean, I try to stay on topic, but I think not just for the governor, for many members. I think this building gives a false sense of security, and you say and do things you would not do in front of people's face behind a keyboard or when you're out of state. But I think that's part of the problem with politics right now. And so I do agree that it was wrong to do, and probably wouldn't do that if he had to look the member in the face.
You're recognized for follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One last question. Would you agree with me, in my opinion, that someone that would do such a thing is wholly unfit to be the leader of any group of constituents, much less the great state of Oklahoma?
I mean, I do share part of that concern, yes.
Complicating things yesterday was the fact that lawmakers were already upset with Stitt, who, after he took to social media Thursday morning and threatened to primary any Republican who overturned any of his votes.
So this is stuff that I know is bad for Oklahoma, bad for taxpayers, and you've got the Senate and the House and special interest groups that are trying to override my vetoes. I vetoed 68 bills, absolutely, that we're going to put more regulation on businesses and cause higher taxes for Oklahomans. So remember this, you did an awesome job. You took out some of the most liberal people in the Senate in the primary and the general election last election in 24. And when 26 comes up, you got to know how these people vote, and are they voting for bigger government and to override the governor's veto. So I'll be reminding you about that in 26 on these elections.
Lawmakers in both parties accused Stitt of actively interfering with the veto override process. Though they say it did not contribute to the vote to fire Friesen, it was clear things had reached a boiling point between the legislative and executive branches early in the day.
Evidently, since the governor has called for all of us to be primaried to override his vetoes today, and his staff can't seem to read a bill correctly, and they vetoed my bill, I make a motion to override the veto. I move that House Bill 2459 become law, notwithstanding the objections of the governor.
Speaker of the House Kyle Hilbert said early this morning, after the long day of session ended, that he and the House Republican majority were shocked by Stitt's primary threat because leadership met with him to discuss which vetoes they wanted to override. And Hilbert says in some cases, Stitt gave his blessing to override his vetoes.
All of the veto overrides in both chambers that we had taken up to that point, the governor had told us he had no issues with us taking up and overriding. In fact, some of the vetoes he said, I hope you'll override this one. I got additional information and there were some issues with it. And so that's what we did. We were pretty frustrated with that video that came out. And so I told my team, I said, look, we did our part. We tried to have conversations with the executive branch. Now, if we have 2/3 votes, we're going to put it up. And so that's what we did this afternoon and passed a lot of good bills.
Over the coming weeks and months, there will be a series of events that will hopefully lead to the end of the financial disaster at the State Department of Mental Health. State lawmakers left the Capitol putting a Band-Aid on the situation, saying major reforms will happen next session when they have more answers. Here's what's going to happen. Governor Stitt's special investigators and special auditors will release more of their findings soon. State Auditor Cindy Byrd is expected to release Part 2 of her findings as well. And Governor Stitt must now appoint a new director of mental health and substance abuse services who will need state Senate approval. State lawmakers are looking for and insisting the governor appoint someone who can handle a nearly $1 billion agency that needs heavy cleanup. After everything that has happened and everything that is still to happen with the Department of Mental Health, there is a sad and stark reality here, and it's not just on Commissioner Friesen, but those who worked in the agency's leadership for the last decade. Your state lawmakers are now home, and if you ask them about the financial dumpster fire that to this day continues to burn in the Department of Mental Health, they will tell you, just like they've told us in the news, they don't know the answers to where $30 million of our tax dollars went and who took it. Because when they went to get answers these last couple of months themselves, it went from I don't know to at times downright hostile. Part of the money you and I have paid into the system for the most vulnerable among us is gone. Those aren't my words, that's theirs. And the only vague answers we've heard are fraud, corruption, impossible embezzlement with no real details. At the very least, let's hope that there won't be a next time. But if there is a next time, the House figuratively catches fire this badly, we will hope that there will at least be a smoke alarm or someone yelling from help inside, or at the very least, some stranger in a car driving by who sees smoke coming out and calls 911, and that call for help is placed long before all that's left is a pile of embers, ashes, and a bunch of unanswered questions, lost money, and blame.